Good morning, beautiful people. It is 9 a.m. British summertime. This is Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. Thank you for being here. How are you all? You glorious, gorgeous peeps. Absolutely wonderful to have you here with us. Blessings. Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Oop, that's coming out of the speaker there. Ignite that like button. People, says Healing the Silence. Good morning, Soul Sound and Crazy Bunny. Did anybody see Crazy Bunny's cat on X this morning? How cute is that cat? So cute. Just a heads up, a little heads up. It's going to be a short show. I don't know if you can hear, but I am full of cold. Started Tuesday, throat, all the usual stuff, head. Actually today is much better, and hopefully by tomorrow, when I'm supposed to be speaking at UK column, I'll be through the worst. But I am struggling to breathe a little bit this morning. Oh, Pink Diamond, you got the same. Oh my God, it's what a mess, eh? What an absolute mess to have this. But we're all right. We're surviving it. Yes, we are. Good morning, Hugo and Sarah Jane and Super Lisa and Craig and the Curly Crew and Rachel and Crone and Stephen. You've been full of cold yourself, have you, Stephen? It's going around. It is going around. Good morning, Marcuson. Good morning, Marcuson. And I promise you all, people, I promise we are going to move on to some new jingles. But while we've got Marcuson here,
you can't handle the truth. Truth.
Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
Good morning, then rises. It's time to wake up. With Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton.
Did you hear that? I have no idea what's going on today. I'm having one of those days. Yes, you did hear it. Thank you, Marcuson. Thank you so much. That's so wonderful and kind of you to put in so much energy and effort for me. I really do truly appreciate it. Thank you. and good morning, Dennis and Sean and Haldo. Good morning. Crazy Bunny is too funny, isn't it? Which is why we had to play it. Let's hear again, says Marlena. All right, just for you, Marlena. Just for you. Hold on. Let me get it. Ready? Steady.
You can't handle the truth. Truth.
Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
Good morning, then rises. It's time to wake up. With Sonia Poulton,
It is
Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning, one and all. Good morning. Awesome jingle, says Mama Bear. Thank you. It's Marcuson in the comments who did that. What an absolute star he is. Now we need a nice cup of honesty, says Craig. We will get merch, people. Craig is haranguing me to get honest tea on a mug. I kind of like it. It's very catchy, isn't it? Yes, Diana loves it. Don't worry, Sonia, it's only a 4-day cold. You'll be fine. Russell, I think you're right, mate. I actually think you're right. I've got this. I've also got a mug full of lemon and honey, as you do. Nice AI singing on the jingle. Yeah, Tone. So basically, Tone, how that came about was I said I had real problems with AI, removing roles from creative people. And Marcuson obviously saw that as some sort of challenge to show me that AI has its role. And I actually think he's right, actually. Goodness me. Healing the Silence is talking about a hologram of Sonia in your home telling you to get your backside up and ready for the show with that jingle playing. That's a bit of a scary. Yes. Magic Mac, I've booked only one guest today, right? But we will still plow on. Because I think it's really important to show up here, even if I can only show up here for a very short period of time. So let's just have a look what has been going on this week. So a former childminder is jailed for 31 months for an online post. Much to say about that shortly. Former One Direction teen idol Liam Payne falls to his death in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Republican Jacinda Ardern is made a dame from her mate William Windsor. German lawyer Reimer Fulmich speaks from prison. We also have WEF goon Klaus Schwab kicking off the WEF annual meeting of the Global Futures Council and says the next theme for the annual WEF Davos meeting is, quote, collaboration for the intelligent age. Make of that what you will, people. Plus, a man has been convicted of a thought crime in England. So yes, be afraid, be very afraid. And what exactly was Bill Gates, and BlackRock's Larry Fink doing in number 10 this week? More on that shortly. All this and more. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. And I promise I will, as I say, play more of your jingles next week. I promise. I am doing a jingle, just not as quick as AI. I am been busy with life. Soul sound, no stress, no pressure at all. I think it was Tony's that I said I'd play today, but I promise, Tony, I will play it on Monday. Let me have a glug of my lemon water. B said, I literally just posted my first letter to Rainer yesterday. Morning, beautiful people, says Emma. So let's have a look at the news. A child minder married to a Conservative councillor has been jailed for 31 months for inciting racial hatred online on the day of the Southport attacks. Of course, 3 little girls murdered when they went off to a sort of Taylor Swift themed morning during the school holiday. Absolutely heartbreaking rather. Lucy Connolly is, as I say, the wife of a Conservative councillor, Raymond Connolly. She was sentenced in Birmingham Crown Court after pleading guilty last month. Now, here's the thing, right? There's Lucy Connolly. I disagree with everything Lucy Connolly said. It was horrible. It came over as racist. It was violent. It was horrible. Do I think she should have gone to jail? No, I don't. Absolutely no, I don't. And I think that Lucy Connolly has very, very deliberately been made an example of. And isn't it interesting that she goes to jail, whereas she is convicted, whereas the awfully middle class Bernie Spofford, who was one of the first people to put online false information about Southport, nothing happened to her. This is what happens when you can afford decent lawyers, frankly. Oftentimes. Good morning from Misty Wiltshire, said Mimmy Lane. Frankie, thank you. I've got all of those ingredients. I will try those later. Thank you. I'll come back to that. So Lucy Connolly, passing sentence on Lucy. The recorder of Birmingham, Judge Melbourne Inman Casey, said some people use that tragedy as an opportunity to sow division and hatred, often using social media, leading to a number of towns and cities being disfigured. That's a really weird statement, isn't it, for a judge? After noting that Connolly's posts on X inciting attacks on hotels have been viewed 310,000 times, the judge added, when you publish those words, you were well aware how volatile the situation was. That volatility led to serious disorder where mindless violence was used. After the hearing, Mr. Connolly Lucy's husband declined to comment on the sentencing as he left Birmingham. However, after she had pled guilty previously, Mr. Connolly has said that the last few weeks had been quite traumatic for his wife and children. She's a mother. She's banged up for a social media post. You know this is not okay. This is absolutely disproportionate when you have a Hugh Edwards walking free. Of course, it's completely disproportionate. Connolly had earlier deleted the offending post, issued an apology saying, acting on information that I now know to be false and malicious, and in a moment of extreme outrage and emotion, I posted words that I realised were wrong in every way. I am someone who cares enormously about children, and the similarity between those beautiful children who were so brutally attacked and my own daughter overwhelmed me with horror. Her husband went on to say she's a good person. She's not racist. She's got Somalian and Bangladeshi kids she looks after, and she loves them like they're her own. I wouldn't trust her. While I don't want her imprisoned, I would not trust her with any child that isn't white. No, not after those words. Absolutely not. But that's a whole other issue, right? She's not banged up for that. She's banged up for one social media post. CPS were determined to get her. This, of course, was all on the command of Sir Keir Rodney Starmer, trilateral commission man. And obviously, Starmer was the former director of public prosecutions. He sees everything through a very punishing lens. And during the police interview, Lucy admitted that she had a problem with immigration, claimed that children were not safe from immigrants coming in, and all of that was absolutely held against her in court. Every last word. Be careful what you say to police in these meetings, people. So the fact is, as I say, you don't have to support Lucy Connolly's post, and I don't, to be utterly appalled by her prison sentence. They made an example of her. There is no way what she wrote was proportionate with her treatment at the hands of Keir Starmer's justice system. You know, it's a fact that people watching children being raped are not treated as harshly as she has been. That's a fact. That is disproportionate. That is two-tier policing, which in this country now apparently can get you in trouble for even acknowledging that it exists, right? If you are rejoicing in the jailing of this mother for her tweets, then I consider you to be one of them rather than one of us, right? You are an enemy of free speech and in league with those who seek to shut us down. We must be allowed to speak about the impact of immigration without the threat of imprisonment, whether the state likes it or not. What's going on, Sean? I have always believed in total free speech. In my past life as a union activist, I helped escort a member of the National Front into a union conference. He was an elected representative. I understand. I hear what you're saying. He really is two-tier Keir, says Pink Diamond. They are not police, just a trading name for the corporation that employs them, says Shug. Yes, Stephen, absolutely she did. Amazing, isn't it? B said her post was disgusting, but the scales of justice are well out of whack. Where's the spirit level when you need one? Indeed. George says the CPS stands for Corporate Prosecution Service. Oh, George, I'm nick that. That's very good. See you tomorrow in Bristol, Claire. I'll see you. Yep, I'm going to spend the day making myself well. Woo, magic stuff. Magic stuff. And let's just bring this up. Let me bring up a picture that is going to make you shudder. Yes, so I completely disagree, obviously, with what has happened with Lucy Connolly. I think it's absolutely wrong. And then you see people online saying, well, she doesn't exist, or she's never been in jail. Like, people, right? Come with some facts or come with some evidence if those are going to be the kind of statements you make. Because trust me, when you make statements like that and you're anonymous online, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. No, it doesn't. It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Right. Let me show you a picture that should make you shiver. If I can actually find it. Oh God, what have I done with it? I think I've lost it. Let me see if I can bring it up. Let me see if I can bring it up. Slides. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, do you know, it's going to be one of those days, people. I'm doing my absolute best. I promise you I am. I'm doing my best. And it's kind of hard this morning. Oh, that's really, really weird. Because I really want to show you this. Here it is. Here it is. Let's have a look at this. I'm just going to remove something so that I can actually upload this picture, because I can't have this conversation without this picture. This picture tells us so much about what is going on, right? Let me add it to the stage. There you go. That picture horrifies me. So what we have here is obviously Keir Starmer at the front talking to Bill Gates, and behind Keir Starmer is Rachel Reeves, and then Larry Fink. And if a picture can make you shudder, it has to be this one, which is why I had to bring it up. Rachel Reeves, who's looking to freeze pensioners to death. Keir Starmer, who, well, we all know about Keir Starmer. Look, I've just been talking about him to do with Lucy Connolly. We know that he's an absolute arch globalist and Zionist, and working with these two people. And Bill Gates, who loves giving shots to little African children and who has bought his way into influence, because even the globalists probably think he's an a-hole like we do. Yeah. But he's so rich that they kind of like, you can buy Keir Starmer so easily, right? So easily. Offer to buy his wife some clothes. You're in. And then, of course, Larry Fink, founder of Blackrock, buying up large parts of our world, including Ukraine, if I remember correctly. And you have to wonder why they're there. So To this end, I've already drafted a letter to number 10. We need a transcript of what was said at that meeting. I think it was Reform calling for that. And for once, I agree with them. We, the people, have a right to know when RPM and the Chancellor of the Exchequer are doing business with people who are bad for our world. And Fink and Gates are bad for our world. Sid's anyone for a sausage, said Anne. He's rich with blood money, says Fox. Her sister is our local MP, all friends of the Z genociders. Whose sister? Whose sister? Rachel Reeves? Really? Yes, Craig. Exactly like that. Almost like the Labour gang flying to the USA to support the crackling Kamala. She's ridiculous, isn't she? Can get away with murder under the rows of philanthropy. Absolutely spot on, says Emma. Absolutely. These people are vile. They are vile. This picture literally creeps me out. Like, I mean, you know, that is just the way it is, right? When you look at certain pictures, there's another picture I'm going to bring up later, which also really creeps me out, right? So we need to know what was taking place at number 10 Downing Street. Bill Gates has no glorious overriding right to be there. His interference in our media and our government is simply because he's bought his way in, right? He's an idiot. They know it, but he's bought his way in. Stella, when I said I have another picture that will make you shudder, it will be exactly that one, my darling. But before we get there, I want to turn to one of our viewers, lovely viewers. The Longer Game said, hi, Sonia Poulton. There seems to be enough red flags surrounding this for you to do what you do best. Then slip it into one of your brilliant shows. I can imagine Liam knew and saw too much about what really goes on in the music industry, akin to Hollywood. What do you say? Well, Longer Game, I have plenty to say. I mean, first of all, it's about many things, isn't it? It's the tragedy of fame, unresolved issues. Liam Payne, of course, was for the longest period of time the lead singer of One Direction. They came to fame on the X Factor. They were originally solo singers, but Simon Cowell, massive music industry executive, I'm sure you all know him, he put them together as a band. And sadly, Liam Payne was found dead on Wednesday, and it was 5 p.m. local time in Argentina. He died instantly from multiple injuries, including a fractured skull, when he fell 45 foot from his Buenos Aires hotel balcony. 31 years old. And he plunged into the courtyard of the Casas Hotel in Argentina. This is one of the last pictures and images that he posted to Snapchat. And this is where it gets interesting, is the mainstream media is reporting that this was one of the last pictures taken in his hotel room. It wasn't. This picture was taken at a mate's house because he was there. Liam Payne was there with his girlfriend, who returned to America 2 days before Liam's death, right? And his girlfriend is actually in this video. When you watch the longer video, rather than just see that clip, his girlfriend is in it, and they're actually at a mate's house. But mainstream media are reporting that this was the last one taken in his hotel. Not true, not true. Absolutely fake, right? But many people are saying, what happened to Liam? I mean, he was literally like, you know, on top of the world, wasn't he? One Direction, they had many, many hits. I used to dance to it with my daughter. This week, he'd been dropped by his record label, Universal Music, or rather last week. His PR resigned earlier this month. And his solo career really hadn't taken off at all. And it's pretty similar to when I media tutored the Spice Girls, and one piece of advice I said to them was that you have to stay together, because I didn't want to say to them that separately you don't amount to much, but together you're something. And that was the same with One Direction. Shug has never heard of them, thankfully. Shug, they were massive. Tara, or was poor Liam dead before he went over the balcony? Now, Tara, here's the thing, is that I think there are many questions about this, because the one thing that seems apparent was that he seemed to be in an okay mood, right? Apparently he was in the hotel room before his death with 2 females. They are being questioned right now. He's been through a lot, but nothing that necessarily you would say that he would kill himself for. But the thing is, depression is a funny thing. I'm sure if anybody watching this has experienced it, you know as well as I do, that it can change you in an instant. It really can. And he recently suffered some backlash online after he made some sexist comments to his girlfriend about the way she dresses. The day before, his ex had actually called in the lawyers and threatened legal action against him. We are told that he repeatedly had suicidal thoughts. Now, that on its own is not necessarily a reason to believe that he would kill himself. Lots of people have suicidal thoughts. It's actually more common than we're led to believe oftentimes. But he'd arrived in Argentina earlier this month to attend his ex-bandmate Niall Horan's concert, and he did, and by all accounts it was great fun. He posted a video about it, but something obviously doesn't add up about this. Clearly it doesn't. As I say, Payne rose to stardom age 16 after forming boy band One Direction on the X Factor in 2010. And I listened to the hotel call to emergency services. It was talking about his erratic behavior, about when he's awake, he's smashing up the room, he's on drugs. But some of the language went, like in the translation of it, it was so painful. It was described that his fall was incompatible with life. And I was like, oh my God, that is gobsmackingly sad. Of course, we've seen all this kind of drug paraphernalia now that's now been leaked online. I don't know where all these images have gone, but I tell you what, we got to start getting a bit of honor in our world. TMZ, I know TMZ is a rag, but it's huge. They published images of his fallen body, and they'd clipped it so that you could see his arm and his tattoos and everything. But what is wrong with you people? They removed it offline after backlash. But what is wrong with you people? Honestly, have some dignity. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, poor lad, his body was transported to a local morgue, post-mortem examination carried out, and died from his fall, we're told. But these people online, whether that's TMZ or Perez Hilton, they're so hungry to be the first with their exclusives that they've lost all sense of decency and rationale. It really is repugnant, frankly, really is repugnant. Here's Liam with One Direction and Simon Cowell, which brings me to Simon Cowell. But just to say, so what had happened, obviously his girlfriend Kate Cassidy had gone back to US a couple of days before. She'd shared a TikTok video revealing that she was flying back to her home in Florida. She added that she had originally planned to stay in Argentina for just 5 days, but she ended up staying for 2 weeks, and it was time to get back home. Now, back to the Longer Games tweet. And I refer to Katie Waissel's tweet. Katie Waissel was on X Factor with Liam Payne. She became very close to him. She tweeted, "My heart is completely torn to shreds right now. I am at an absolute loss for words. If Simon Cowell dare put a statement out on the heart-wrenching, tragic loss of my dear and darling friend Liam, he would be a fool. We all know the truth, and I'll be sure it all comes out. Justice for Liam." That's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. Simon Plastic Cheeks Cowell. Yeah, he's had a lot of filler in that face. About 2 years ago, I did a deeper dive into Simon Cowell. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description. But we've now heard that Britain's Got Talent has cancelled auditions in the wake of Liam Payne's death. But just to talk a little bit about Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell has a dark side. He's done a lot of stuff that I completely disagree with, right? But a little bit about him. Do you know that he worked with Stanley Kubrick on The Shining? He was a runner at Elstree Studios before he became famous. He was arrested as a child. He put a toy gun to a bus driver's head when he was 12, made the driver drive 20 miles. This is a dark person. The persona that was created on TV, I believe, is who he is. Nasty, absolute crushing for people to encounter, a proper narcissist. He'd started in the music industry as an EMI mailroom clerk. His dad was in the music business. Yes, Crazy Bunny. I come with the news around here. Yes, I do. Of course, he's launched many artists, Westlife, Leona Lewis, Little Mix, One Direction, many of them. And a number of convicted paedophiles and sex abusers, by the way, were formerly very close with Mr. Cowell. Max Clifford, the celebrity PR, who was convicted of 8 counts of indecent assault. And Jonathan King. Remember that time that Simon Cowell gave Jonathan King £50,000? This was when Jonathan King was facing a convictions rather. So what happened was, according to King, when Cowell heard he'd been arrested, Simon Cowell was the first person to offer help. King says that he later called Cowell to see if he'd put up part of the bail money, and the X Factor star replied that he didn't need to ask. The money kept King out of prison during the lead up to his Old Bailey trial in 2001, when he was jailed for 7 years for offences against boys aged 14 and 15 in the 1980s. Cowell says, "I certainly regret what I did at the time. I had no idea what he'd done, and it was before he was found guilty." Then, of course, let us not forget that Simon Cowell has donated money to the Israeli army. Yeah, he has, at fundraisers. But he's hugely responsible for the degradation of family TV. Some of the stuff that he's put on X Factor is absolutely abhorrent. Like, basically strippers, Lady Gaga, Pussycat Dolls, like strippers for a family entertainment audience. But here's a clip that I like to say to people. Have you seen this? Because many people haven't. And I think this is a really interesting clip. And you can't find it online anymore, but I kept it because I'm that kind of person. But basically, let me just tell you, this is Simon Cowell arriving at one of the auditions for Britain's Got Talent, of course, as a judge. And watch what happens when he steps out of the car. Got to do up his thighs.
Is it good to have
His thighs are undone. Watch the female sneak out the other side.
Boys back together.
Me and David.
You and David.
And what makes me annoyed is that conversation that he had with the waiting press is so It's unbelievable. They're like, "Oh, you're back. You're back, Simon, and Ant and Decker here. Yes, synchronised soul. I like to flash it around to show people who Simon Cowell is." Don't anybody tell me he wasn't being pleasured in the back of that car, right? Sue me, Simon Cowell. Sue me. He's a rancid man. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Katie, heck. Yes. And you see how the sycophants, John from Coventry, imagine driving these perverts around, pulling his shirt down to hide something. It's absolutely disgusting. These people are disgusting. And the sycophants of mainstream media, they're going, "Hi, Simon." Honestly, if I was out there, the first thing I'd say is, "Simon, why are you doing your zip up?" That's why I don't often turn up at these things. The other person in the back of the car made a quick exit, massively quick exit. And that other person will probably, in a few years' time, be putting in a lawsuit against Simon Cowell, right? Allegedly. Who knows? Not very nice for the chauffeur. No, Fox. They don't care. These people don't care. Morning, Fortian. Good morning to you. I think I'm about ready to very shortly bring in my first guest. Excited. Well, actually, my only guest today, because I decided I'm only going to book one guest today. Before we get to that, though, let me talk about Adam Smith-Connor, found guilty at Bournemouth Magistrates Court of violating a so-called buffer zone around an abortion clinic. He was praying silently. The court ruled that he had manifested disapproval of abortion by clasping his hands and bowing his head. Now, to be absolutely clear, I am pro-choice. But that doesn't mean that I think a man should be convicted for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yes, Simon Cowell did give money to the Madeleine McCann campaign. Yes, he did. And I think that this is two-tier policing working against Christianity. And I don't have to agree with him, right? I don't have to agree with what Adam Smith-Connor has done, but I think he has a right to do it. Yes, I do. What we heard was, unfortunately, we have seen repeated cases of free speech under threat in the UK when it comes to the expression of Christian beliefs. To offer a prayer silently in the depths of your heart cannot be an offence. These are the people who are talking for Adam. Mr. Smith-Connor said, "It cannot be right. All I did was pray to God in the privacy of my own mind. And yet I stand convicted as a criminal. I served for 20 years in the Army Reserves, including a tour in Afghanistan to protect, excuse me, the fundamental freedoms that this country is built upon." And I think it's really shocking. I think it's actually shocking to have a buffer zone around abortion clinics as well, because this is all about stopping our freedom of movement. We shouldn't, like people clapping and cheering that Lucy Connolly has been arrested. They're coming for you next, mate. You better know it. What's this, Philip? Sonia, can I say? New World Order courts make their laws up as and when needed. I hope you don't delete this comment like you have with some of my other comments. Philip, we're not deleting comments. I don't know why you're accusing us of that. You do know that YouTube delete comments, right? But we haven't deleted your comment. Rupert wants to know if he prayed to Allah. Is that okay? Good question. What's this? Sonia, what's this? I hope you have a COVID test for that sniffle and cough. Brit Mail said. I like a sense of humour. First thing in the morning, Brit Mail. I like it. And don't forget, police recently had to pay compensation to Isabel Vaughan Spruce. Last month, police paid £13,000 in compensation to a Catholic woman who was wrongfully arrested for praying silently outside an abortion clinic. West Midlands Police conceded claims of 2 wrongful arrests of Isabel Vaughan Spruce, along with false imprisonment, assault and battery in relation to an intrusive search, a breach of her human rights and the onerous bail conditions they imposed on her. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. What kind of country? This is literally like, we're worse than North Korea now. Come on, we can't as a people say, oh, at least we don't live in North Korea. No, we live in England. And the problem about living in England is Starmer, who only got in on 20% of the votes, is a lunatic, an absolute lunatic. And we know it. Yes, we do. And that's why we have to raise awareness to what's going on around here. It's absolutely wrong what has taken place, that somebody is convicted for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. It is wrong that somebody is convicted for an online social media post. These things are wrong, but that is because this is Starmer's Britain. And I'm delighted to welcome in somebody who is part of the pushback against that. So let's bring him on. Let's bring him on. Let's bring him in. Here he is. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Sonia. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, it might help, James, if I actually put on. I'm having one of those mornings, James.
How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
I can't hear James at all. That's weird. Hello, James.
Can you hear me?
Can everybody else hear James? Hello, James.
Can you hear me?
Can everybody else hear James, or is it just me?
Testing.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Goodness me. It's one of those days, people.
Is that better?
Let's try that again. James.
Is that better?
Oh, I really can't hear James. Can anybody hear him, people? Let's have a look, see what we've got here. No, the mute isn't on. Edit mic, echo, reduce automatically. No, everything should be fine. We had this situation before, didn't we, with Catherine O'Sullivan? Do you remember? James, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
If you can hear me, go back out, come back in again. There we go. Let's give it a shot. Craig said, meanwhile, Sharia law flourishes. When Obama has hands in pockets, he allegedly has trinkets he plays with. There's even a vid. Go, Joe. Really? Oh, that's interesting. Is that a nervous reaction? I wonder if that's a nervous reaction. Let's try that. Hello, James.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, that is really weird. Can anybody hear James out there?
It's definitely coming through.
Peculiar thing. Why are we not hearing him? Can anybody hear James?
Testing.
Can anybody hear James, people? Can anybody hear him?
Hello?
Yes, you can hear both of us. Oh, that's just so weird. Well, let me try that. James?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I'm going to do away with my headphones. As long as I've got you, it's absolutely fine. I do apologize, James. I'm really unwell. And I only show up here because I have a slave master who wakes me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and says, get out there and entertain the masses. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thank you for joining us this morning, everybody. This is our future right here in front of us. And I'm delighted to welcome him. His name is James Harvey. He is the founder of Students Against Tyranny. Welcome, James. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. And it's about time you students arrived, really. What is going on in our education establishments, James, that made you want to found that organisation?
Well, thank you. And I've got to say, for someone who's getting up quite early in the morning, because as a student, it is bloody early for me. You're in such a lovely mood, which is amazing. And I think that's quite infectious as well. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Because we were watching you for a little bit before the podcast, and just amazing, isn't it? But yeah, thank you for having me on. So I'm the founder of an organisation called Students Against Tyranny. we started as a social group during the, I don't know what I can say on YouTube. So
yeah, we got to be really careful. Like when it comes to like gender issues, Black Lives Matters, all that kind of stuff, you know what it's like, right? But the thing is that we can still talk in big banners, can't we?
Yeah.
And what it is that you're opposing. And so one of the things that you've been dealing with, as one example, is the Race Equality Charter. What is a Race Equality Charter?
So you have the Race Equality Charter, right, and you have the Athena Swan Charter, and so they're both pretty much the same kind of thing, but they focus on different aspects, right? So the Race Equality Charter, they focus on race, and then you have the Athena Swan Charter, which focuses on gender. And what their aim is to reward universities that adhere to a racial equality narrative or a gender equality narrative, right? So you have something called the Bronze Award, and then you have the Silver Award. Now, the Bronze Award is if a university has a plan and makes a proposal as to how they're going to achieve full racial equality in the university, they're going to receive the Bronze Award, right? And then if you actually take steps to implementing that plan, you've got you receive the Silver Award. So at the moment, a lot of people would have seen that universities are hiring equality, diversity and inclusion officers on £150,000 salaries. That's a big step towards winning a Silver Award. And then you've got some universities like the London School of Economics, which has removed Christian holidays from the calendar, like a Lent, Easter, Christmas. They're removed from the calendar. Interestingly, though, Ramadan is still there. Weird. So
I'm that shocked.
It's mad, isn't it? It's just a blatant double standard.
It is double standards. We're constantly being gaslighted, aren't we? There's no doubt about it. And the thing is, it's so important that students stand up because it was always the case that our education establishments were places where free thinking could take place. People could, work with different ideas about, what our society, but that isn't the case anymore. So please carry on talking about what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people would have seen the talk at the moment about decolonization, which again ties into that. So you've got certain universities now that are decolonizing their history, their language, and their culture and their heritage in an aim to be more inclusive. This is all part of the Race Equality Charter. It's rewarding universities who adhere to this culturally Marxist, radical woke scheme, right? Like, what was it? The University of Surrey, I believe it was, that has now got an inclusive language guide. Same with the University of Edinburgh, right? And something else to tell you about the University of Edinburgh is that they are currently university students have been awarded £800,000 by the UK Research Innovation Council, right? This is all part of the Race Equality Charter, right? This is all about them winning an award, yeah? So academics at that university were awarded £800,000 to decolonise a Scottish poet, author, and novelist called Robert Louis Stevenson. And Robert Stevenson has written books that you may know, such as The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Treasure Island, some really well-known, very famous books.
Massive.
Yeah, definitely massive, right? Now, he was very critical. When he was around, he was very critical of Western imperialism, right? So he was quite progressive for his time. Very progressive for his time. But because he perpetuated a few colonial stereotypes, apparently, he deserves being decolonized and painted out as this massive villain because he had a few unsavory opinions on certain topics. Yeah. So they're decolonizing him. But the hypocrisy, the absolute and utter hypocrisy of it is that same university has taken millions and millions and millions of funding from organizations linked with the Chinese military, with organizations linked with the People's Liberation Army. So the People's Liberation Army, they were responsible for the Tiananmen Square massacre and the persecution and imprisonment of Falun Gong practitioners, right? So how can you decolonize a Scottish author for apparently being racist, even though he's quite critical of Western imperialism, all at the same time overlook the fact that university that you're writing those, in your little basement writing those articles from, has taken millions in funding from organizations that literally currently persecute and imprison people for... Right. For what is essentially the Chinese equivalent of yoga.
It's sheer hypocrisy of it, isn't it, really? They're not doing joined up thinking, or are they?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's all linked together. It is like, Was it? You can't, when you look into the education system and you look at what really happened, it's kind of hard to pinpoint an exact moment where it started going downhill.
Right.
I mean, do you know anything about Prussia?
About Prussia?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you probably know more. Talk to me.
So when Prussia was preparing for war against Napoleon, they implemented an education system to create the perfect soldier, right? And essentially the perfect soldier is someone who doesn't question orders. They don't critically think, they just do as they're told, right? The perfect jarhead. That was essentially the idea. And so in 1902, I believe it was, the Rothschilds put £1 million into the formation of the General Education Board. When this system came into America, America dropped from like the first, second, third in English, maths, and science to like the 34th, 35th, 36th. And one of the things they've removed was the ability to critically think. It was basically modeled off the Prussian education system. Right. So around that same time, that then came over to the rest of Western Europe. It came into the UK, into British universities as well. So, I mean, while it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment where it starts going downhill, early 20th century, we can begin to see, as soon as the Rothschilds put money in, across, the UK and the US dropped down to really low skills in the core subjects, right? So it is hard to pinpoint an exact moment, but I mean, you know, we talk about this, the Race Equality Charter, the Athena Swan Charter. I mean, they've only come around now in the past decade, and it's the same with decolonization as well. And then you've got Confucius Institutes, which is another very interesting topic that ties in the CCP, so the Chinese Communist Party.
Fascinating.
It really is. And
it is fascinating, James. Yeah. But the thing is that, and I speak with some experience, my daughter is mixed race, half my family are Jamaican. And trust me when I say this, they are not interested in this BS. They are not. They actually think it creates more problems for Black people. This is often pushed by very middle class white people, isn't it? That's what's going on here.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, because from what I've seen from the younger generation at the moment, is that the very radical, so they're either on one side of the political spectrum, they're either what many people would consider far right or very far left. And what I think's happened is because they're like with Pride, right? They're constantly shoving it down your throat. They're constantly making you accept it. And because they're forcing it down your throat and making you accept it, it makes you absolutely hate trans people and absolutely hate gay people. Not that I do.
No, of course not. But that's the knock-on effect, isn't it? Because it's like, oh yeah. God, what are they asking for this time? But it's not necessarily them, is it? It's all the agenda that's swirling around them.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of gay people that you'll speak to, they will not agree with any of this nonsense.
Absolutely.
At all. But it's marketed as if this is for them, but it's not for them. It's so certain people can have a new flag in their Twitter bio and act like they're saving the world. It's all about virtue signaling. Yeah,
it is, but it's obviously bigger than that, isn't it? And I gather you've done a huge amount of research into this. What do you think this is about? The big overarching picture.
So, if you look at any communist regime throughout history, right? If you want to look at the Khmer Rouge, right, or Mao's Cultural Revolution would probably be a bigger one, because Mao's Cultural Revolution, you know, you had people beating teachers, counter-revolutionaries, and it was an extremely violent cultural revolution. If you look at any communist or Marxist revolution throughout history, it was always done utilizing the students, right? There was an experiment done I think it was in, I want to say it was in the 80s, but I think it was a lot before, it was a while before that. There was something called the third wave experiment, right? And this teacher wanted to, a student asked this teacher whether, how did the Nazis get people to go along with it? I wouldn't do that, right? And so the teacher wanted to prove a point. Within 5 days, he turned that entire school into a Nazi regime. Right, it's a really interesting experiment, and I heavily suggest people read up on it.
Oh, that reminds me of the Stanford prison experiment to a certain degree. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yeah, it's very much similar to that, right?
Right, okay, interesting. Right, for those who aren't familiar with the Stanford prison experiment, the idea was that they made people guards and they made people prisoners, and they left them be. This is a very brief description of it, but they left them be to see how they would become, and the guards became increasingly more punishing as the time went on. These people sort of became almost stereotypes of who they were supposed to be. So I think it sounds quite similar, but it's obviously it's kind of like psychological pressure that's taking place there.
Yeah, definitely, right? So you know, these, I mean, what was it? So with Mao, for example, and the Bolsheviks did this as well, they would snowplow editorial offices and student organizations, right? Wow. They wanted to get the students on board because what the students, for one, then I would say they're more radical. You can they're more vulnerable to being radicalized, right? Yes. They have this, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think about words there. There's a reason they target the students, right? And I mean, even if you read up on, so what was his name? Yuri Bezmenov, who was a KGB propaganda agent. He defected to Canada. And even he explains that the reason a Marxist revolution takes 15 years is because that's how long it takes to influence an entire generation of young people.
Right. Interesting.
Right? Every communist regime throughout history, they target the young people. They target the young people first. They grab a hold of the moral superiority complex that comes with being young, right? You want to feel like you're helping the world. This is why a lot of young people are socialists, because they have this false impression that socialism actually helps people, and that's why they want to be socialists, right? And they can say, "Oh yeah, actually, I'm all about fighting for the working class because I'm socialist." It's all a facade, right? It's basically about boosting their ego. So young people are really easy to influence into either a really far left ideology or a really far right one. And so they're targeting the students right now because they know that the students are more likely to buy into this trans debate and this race equality narrative, whereas the older generation, they're more stuck in their ways and they're going to be harder to influence. They've got more life experience and they're just going to be overall just much harder to convince of everything that's going on. So they want to get the young people on board, and then the young people, right, who are jumping on board are now pushing this revolution through. I mean, look at the 15-minute cities, the low traffic neighborhoods in Oxford. They were promoted by the young people. They were promoted by students. They were a lot of the planning was done by students. A lot of the design work was done by students.
Absolutely. Did you see what went on yesterday at Oxford University? Did you see that, where this house is calling for mandatory vaccinations? I don't know if you saw that. So obviously, it's very interesting, isn't it? The influence of students. And you're absolutely right. But British universities, as one example, have always been sort of bastions of left-wing radicalism, right? I mean, I attended one. I know what my tutor was like. And I actually come from the left originally, not anymore. But, originally I came from the left.
Yeah.
So we've always had that. But it's also, as I said at the beginning, it's always been this idea that students, it's a perfect place where students can try out ideas. But that is not what's happening. This is one of the most conformist regimes that I've actually seen in a long time. This is about conforming, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, your university lecturer there. I think it's 8 in 10 university lecturers in Britain are left-wing. 8 in 10.
I believe that.
Yeah, so it's a very high percentage of university lecturers that kind of conform with this. And you're right, it's about conformity. One of my good friends, I'm not going to mention her name, but she attends all our protests in Norwich. We're doing protests at the University of East Anglia over men and female changing rooms, which we can get into in a second if you don't mind. So one of our friends is a detransitioner. She attends all of our protests. She spent 7 years as trans, right? She even ran a tattoo a tattoo parlor place, and where she was quite famously trans. Everyone would go to her because she was a transgender tattoo parlor, right? But then as soon as she left that, or as soon as she said, actually, I'm not sure, she was still left wing at this point. Actually, I'm not sure. I might want to detransition. She got so much hate. She got death threats.
Oh, yeah.
She got people turning up at the business.
They're in terrible trouble, these detransitioners. Can I just make a correction there? It was Cambridge University. Thank you, Fox, pointing that out. It was Cambridge University who wants to mandate vaccinations, which talks about the absolute compliance of what we're dealing with. Yeah, the detransitioners go through absolute hell, don't they?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And this, again, proves the point that it's all about conformity. Because even if you're left wing, but you slightly disagree in a few aspects, you're out, right? And the thing that we found with Students Against Tyranny, there's tons of people in in my organization who heavily disagree with me on certain topics, heavily, right? But at the end of the day, they're welcome to be there as long, they're always welcome to be there as long as they're not engaging in the acts of terrorism, right? Because words are not inherently violent.
Right.
So this is the kind of difference between the right and the left from what I found. Obviously, there is a woke right, as you call it, but there's a big difference between the left and the right. And one of the things about the left is that you have to conform. You have to agree with them on 100% of the things.
You
and if you don't, you're a Nazi.
absolute purity spiral on the left. There's no doubt about it. But James, what is this all about for you, though? Because honestly, I mean, we often have Montgomery Toms on here. I don't know if you're familiar with Montgomery, but another young man who is speaking out. And I love it personally. I absolutely love seeing young people, because you are literally our future. I'm not going to be here forever. I can't keep doing this. I'm going to need people who are younger coming up and can do this. And it's absolutely wonderful. But the thing is that you're on an uphill slog as a student in these environments, speaking out the way you are. I bet you get a lot of hate.
So I was expelled from university about,
there you go.
What was it? About a year and a bit ago. No, it was almost, a year and about 8 months ago I was kicked out of university. But I mean, we've got a lot. The thing is about Students Against Tyranny, right? So we, at the height of it, during the you-know-what era, we had about 400 members, right? And then that dipped to about 3, because after that era ended, numbers dropped for absolutely everything in terms of activism. But that's since gone up for this semester, because we have people leave the way it works is people leave every year because people leave university, or people become over the age of 25. So we're back for this semester now. We're about 87 members, I think.
Wow.
But it's about getting people out on the streets. And, I'll find there are quite a lot of young people who agree with us. Just in Norwich, they're not official members of Students Against Tyranny, but where we're doing our University of East Anglia series of protests at the moment about men and female changing rooms, there's about 15 students that we found just by going out on the street who agree with us. But they don't want to come out because they're afraid of the retaliations from far left groups like Antifa. When we organised one of our first demonstrations down here, we had a member of Antifa managed to get through police lines and throw a water balloon at us that some people are speculating was for the PE, but we haven't been able to ascertain whether that's true or not. So I think there are a lot more young people on board than people think, and I think this next generation that we're seeing, the next generation who will be entering university, are going to be even more based. And I don't like using that term, frankly. I think that, like my brother, right? He's 18 years old. He's never been political before, but seeing the pride flags everywhere, seeing the constant shoving of this propaganda down his throat, he's now become as far right as me. So I think that this constant wokeness and this constant propaganda is going to be the death of them, and it is going to push them right into our arms.
Yes, I completely agree with you. What do you think about Keir Starmer and his attack on right-wing people, far-right people, not even right-wing, far-right people, and the jailing of Lucy Connolly for a social media post? What are your thoughts about that?
So I'm not too sure on Lucy Connolly, because her post, I know she was going through some stuff at the time, but it did mention about...
the posts were abhorrent. They were horrible. They were absolutely horrible. But do they deserve 2.5 years in prison?
Absolutely not. The same judge who put Wayne O'Rourke in prison for 3 years gave a suspended sentence to a man who was attempting to meet a 14-year-old girl for sex. So... so these very same
judge also didn't imprison a man who had set on fire other people outside a mosque as well. So that's interesting. I mean, these are actual violent acts. And so I think a lot of what you're dealing with, and again, we've been talking about thought crimes as well today, a man convicted for silently praying outside an abortion clinic. Presumably, whether you agree with these things or not, you oppose that, don't you? Because isn't the idea of where you're coming from against tyranny? And the attack on our free speech is tyrannical, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, communist regimes, Marxist regimes, the first thing they go after is free speech. And this, again, ties in with the universities, because the inclusive language guides, where they're telling you there's certain universities now where you can't say immigrant. There's other universities where you can't say mum and dad. There's other universities where you can't...
Shut up. Where you can't say mum and dad.
Yeah, you have to say caregiver.
I'm sorry, my cold can't cope with this kind of nonsense. This is ridiculous. This is literally and that's why I'm always interested in the big picture. What is it really about? What is it leading to? And it's leading to a society where we're like formless, where we're genderless, right? Where, it's, it works perfectly with an AI society, doesn't it? This whole idea that we become just automatons. We're like, we're automatic. We no longer have the ability to free flow with our thought or our speech. That's definitely where it's going.
Well, they come after your language for the simple reason of it. If, for example, right, they remove immigrants, they remove the words illegal immigrants, yeah? In this generation, we could still remember that word. But if they completely outlaw it and they arrest anyone who says it, in a couple of generations' time, that word won't exist. Right?
You're absolutely right.
And because it won't exist, you won't be able to think, you won't be able to think there's anything wrong with it. It's about limiting your thoughts. Once they limit your words and speech, they limit your thoughts. They limit the way you think. And they make sure that you can't think of anything that goes against the system. You can't think of a way that is counter-revolutionary, right? So it's about limiting your ideas, your thoughts, and by extent, limiting the amount you can do to fight back against the system. It's very smart the way they've done this all, because they've managed to get everyone to go along with it. They have. You've got to, they've managed to get absolutely everyone to go along with this. And, people said, oh, we'll never let a Nazi regime happen again. We are literally letting a Nazi regime take over, right? Starmer's been in all of 4 or 5 months. And already we've seen riots roam the streets. We've seen people imprisoned for 3 years for a few unsavory tweets. A woman in prison for 31 months while pedophiles go free with no charge. And many terrorists, go free with no charge and don't get deported back to their country for free, as they might be persecuted upon their return. It's a ridiculous system that we live in. But at the end of, people are letting this happen, and this is the again, it's a Stanford prison experiment, isn't it?
Yes, it's a chilling effect, though, isn't it? When you hear of a Lucy Connolly being banged up for a social media post, it makes you think about, do I really want to do that? I did a video this week with Dr. Simon Elmer about the Great Replacement, and we start off by talking about the legal environment in which we're even having this conversation and the problem about having a conversation, but we need to be able to have that conversation. Yeah. But James, you come from a radical background. Your parents radical?
No, I think, what was it? When I was 11 years old, my dad used to drive me to school, and we used to talk conspiracy theories, as they call them, like 9/11 and things like that. So, I mean, maybe some people would say that was radical to discuss extreme ideas, such as the fact that 9/11 may or may not have been an inside job. But what was it? My parents were very quite, I don't want to say right wing, but like my dad, he's always been awake to everything that's going on. My mum, not so much, until she watched Handmaid's Tale, and then everything that me and my dad been babbling on about for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. She finally realised that we were right. So, I don't come from a radical background per se, but it's great to have both parents who can agree politically, because I know a lot of people are dealing. A lot of students, a lot of young people, they got the because their parents told them to. Yes. And I think that's quite sad as well. Exactly. They had no body autonomy.
Exactly. Thank you for skirting around it like that. Everybody will know what you're talking about, and it just won't trigger any of the ridiculous sentences. But that in itself is interesting, isn't it? The fact that we have to kind of play fast and loose and dance around these topics because we're on a platform that will seek to silence us. And so there's really nowhere. When people talk about, in England you have free speech, I'm like, that's only because you haven't pushed the envelope. You only say that because you've not done anything that has alerted the authorities. And that is the reality, right? And but I do think you're very brave, and especially at your age. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I don't know how old you are, but I would imagine you're around about the age of my daughter, mid-20s or something. But it is so refreshing, because we're constantly being told that our youth have been dumbed down, that they're all compliant. And I know for a fact from my daughter and her friends that just simply isn't the case. There are still plenty of you out there who are thinking, and we do need you. We absolutely do need you. What is your focus at the moment? What do you consider one of the primary issues that is attacking who we are as people and our free speech?
See, the thing is, we organise, so the way Students Against Tyranny works is we organise protests around everything, every topic, right? It's like in Swansea, we've done 15-minute cities. In, where else is it? In Manchester, we've done free speech over a student who was bullied massively by a university for voting Brexit, right? It's a story, by the way, if anyone wants to read this on urbансcoop.news, how Manchester University conspired against a non-woke student. It will blow your mind what you went through, and we've seen all the receipts, right? We've organised protests in Cardiff, everywhere, right? And the protest we're organising at the moment is in Norwich at the University of East Anglia over men in female changing rooms. We've organised about 6 so far. We've got a 7th one on the November 23rd at the UEA Sports Park, 1 p.m. So we organise protests on absolutely everything. But I would say the core issue that I'm trying to fight against is because I know I've seen there's loads of protest groups that focus on individual subjects, right? You've got protest groups that focus on ULEZ, you've got protest groups that focus on 15-minute cities, you've got protest groups that focus on immigration, on Islam, etc. So what I want to focus on is free speech in academia. I want academia to be very nuanced, because the way I envision university is a marketplace of ideas, right? It's where you go to experience these new ideas, these new concepts, and you decide what you want to follow, whether that's socialism, whether that's capitalism, whatever it is, right? You decide what you want to follow. But the problem with university at the moment is that it's very left wing. In one class in university, right, we learned, this was in one lesson, we learned about socialism from a very pro-socialist standpoint. We learned about we learned anti-Trump values. We learned, what was it? Climate change. And there was another one as well, but I can't quite remember. And this was all in one lesson, right? And I was doing film and TV. I wasn't even doing anything that political, right? And so I know I know university as well. University, so the lecturers are in charge of their lesson content, right? They're in charge of their lesson content. I know and understand that. And that's what I'm asking for reforms on, right? There's got to be some legislation in place that forces it, so the class is a little bit more nuanced. And like we did have the Higher Education Freedom of Speech Bill. That was scrapped as soon as Starmer got in. All that did was enable us university students to actually sue universities for kicking us out for having a mildly right-wing opinion, right? Clause 4 of the bill would enable us to take lawsuits against the universities. Now, instead, we've got to if we want to do that, we've got to pay £100,000 minimum for a judicial review. So, you know, this is the scummy part of it, right? We had like, as soon as I saw this bill coming, I was like, finally, we can actually do something more than protest. We can actually, go, take these universities to court, hold them accountable. Starmer was like, no, you're not doing that, right? So, that's my issue at the moment. So I want university to be more nuanced and more allowing. I want them to allow students to be able to express their thoughts freely, express their opinions freely. I mean, another student we're talking with at the moment, Rob Ivinson, he was expelled for saying that veganism is wrong. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. So we want free speech back.
What did he say?
Veganism is wrong.
Oh, I see. He was expelled for that stuff. I can't believe this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Again,
absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is, it's so ridiculous, and people struggle to believe it. But that's exactly why we need somebody like you to lead the charge, because it should be a free flow of ideas. That is exactly what takes place. But of course, the other thing that took place with the universities, that when they introduced the big top-up fees and made it so expensive, students became essentially consumers, didn't they? They purchased an education in a way that they hadn't before, and so they started to make demands, didn't they, on the system?
Well, this is what we're seeing at the moment. So you've got foreign enrollment is down in universities about 40%.
Is it really? Interesting.
Yes, it's down quite a big margin, and that's because this was when Sunak was in. One of his this was part of his election ploy because he wanted to get re-elected. He only does stuff around election cycles, doesn't he? All the Conservatives did. But he rearranged the student visa system. Because a lot of people were abusing it. They were bringing over like 10 relatives with them when they came to study in the UK.
Oh, right.
Now, the thing is, universities can charge foreign students at a higher rate than they can indigenous ones. And so they're more willing to take, foreign students on. And when foreign enrollment in UK universities dropped about 40%, universities, they were struggling for money, allegedly. And so what they did was they closed all these history departments. They, they were firing people left, right and centre. But those same universities that were doing that and making these massive budget cuts were hiring people on equality, diversity and inclusion jobs at £150,000 a year. So we're seeing, again, more the double standard. And yeah, you're right. They are seeing it. It's about purchasing and education.
It is essentially exactly that. James, it's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. I very much enjoyed it. And we'd like you to come back again. Loads of brilliant comments. We have loads of comments. Let me read some. It's better, but you must share your stories out. So, right. Kat said, actually, what you are doing. Oh, my God, this is how quick the comments are going. I'm sorry, people. I'm trying to keep up with you. Kat said, actually, what you are doing is better. but you must shout your stories out from the rooftops so folks get to hear about it. Absolutely. It's vital that people like James get platforms, which is why when dear darling Nick, good morning to you, Nick, said to me, what about James Harvey? And I looked at James, I was like, this is exactly what we need. We need more young voices speaking out. And you articulate it so beautifully, James. You really do, really wonderfully. And again, I do not mean that in any patronizing way whatsoever. I'm just so greatly relieved, frankly. Now, people can join you, as you say, join the revolution at obviously on the internet. It's studentsagainsttyranny.com/join. I will put a link in the description to Students Against Tyranny, and support James and support all of them, because these are literally these kids are our future. And I kids, again, it really sounds so patronizing, and I don't mean it to. I'm just
I appreciate it, right? Because one day I'm going to be old and no one's going to call me a kid anymore. So
that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So yeah, wonderful to have you, everybody. The wonderful James Harvey. Take good care of yourself, James. Have a wonderful weekend. How fabulous is he, people? How fabulous is he? What's that, Martin? I'm now of the feeling the UK. What's this? Oh, I've just missed that. I'm now of the feeling. I'm asked. Sorry, Kennedy. I missed that. I think. Well, let's face it, I'm a bit of a mess this morning, aren't I? I'm just got him all over the place. I couldn't hear him. And, I'm coughing and spluttering. I really can't stay on here much longer, my darling people. I'm so unwell, but I'm hoping that I will feel a little better by tomorrow. Now, let's have a look at some more stuff, though, before I depart. This one annoys me. Look at that. Ugh. Jacinda Ardern hopes to spread a little kindness as she's made us dame. So obviously New Zealand's former Prime Minister, she receives Order of Merit from Prince William at Windsor Castle. Now, these two, obviously, I can't stand her and I can't stand him, but this is so wrong. He appointed her as a trustee of his, was it Earthshot? Yeah, the Earthshot Prize, Prince William's Earthshot Prize. You know what that's all about. Okay. Former Prime Minister said she was humbled and excited to be working with Earthshot. It's all about the whole kind of net zero target. It was created by Prince William to fund projects that aim to save the planet. Well, here's the thing. Here's a suggestion. If you want to save a planet, get rid of the royal family for starters, because they're just awful. They're awful people. Let me just have a look at that. Look at that. Isn't that awful? Don't we just hate that? That's the image that just gives me creeps. They're all wet fools. Jibby jab, says Simon. Well, I hear what you're saying. I don't think we've ever had decent explanation for Jacinda Ardern walking down the corridor and something bouncing around. We've never had a decent explanation for that. And I would like a decent explanation. Yes, Fox, is a creepy picture. But they're all wef. Absolutely they are. And that's really what it's about. But so she's humbled and excited, and she wants to spread a bit of kindness, which, frankly, this is the woman who, do you remember during C19, she was like, don't believe what anybody else says, only listen to us. It was very much the Ministry of Truth from 1984. Ding dong, says Lulu. You know what I'm talking about, right? Equality, apparently, but not for the special people. What special people is that? Oh, I see. There are members of WEF, says Cheryl. They are members of WEF, and they're all powerful, all seeing. I mean, they're just everywhere, aren't they? And that is the thing. We cannot underestimate the power of the organizations like WEF and WHO, because, as I love what James is doing. I think it's very brave. And especially because he's actually been in an environment where he would be the enemy. I mean, literally like the enemy. And that's quite hard to take on when you're so young, on your shoulders. Like, I'm older. I've been around the block many, many times. I've been criticized. I've been attacked. I've been, I've been under police investigation. All these things I'm used to now, but not necessarily somebody like James. So I think what he's doing is absolutely brilliant. Hector said the whole system is controlled by rotten parasites. And Ardern is hated here in New Zealand. She can't go anywhere without a 4-man SAS team, said Mike. Is that right? It's horrible. Do you remember when I can't remember the name of the family. There was I ended up actually speaking to the journalist and people involved when they they decided that they were going to mandatory jab a child. I'm pretty sure that was in New Zealand. It's a duty, Sonia. It is beyond belief. It is. And can I tell you who else irritates me? Like, irritates me big time. And that is Christian Grifter Russell Brand. Do you see that he's flogging an amulet this week? This guy is unconscionably bad. He really is. The amulet is selling for $239.99 or €449. And he said it's to protect you from Wi-Fi. And he has a Wi-Fi mic on as he's making the video. He said, I'm just coming from Narnia. He's an idiot. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. He was essentially ejected from the left. This Russell Brand is a lefty. He's not on the right. He might suddenly be showing up as marker now, but that's because that's the only audience that will accept him, right? He's a lefty. The day before the election, when Ed Miliband was the Labour leader, Russell Brand was like, you've got to, and like, he interviewed Ed Miliband, got totally behind him. Some people said that was the reason Ed Miliband lost, right? Is he, Randy? Truth Crusader, did Brand ever leave the Fabian Society? Brand is all part of it. I mean, the idea that he's a truth seeker, he's a freedom lover, just absolutely cracks me up. But to me, he is actually a charlatan. He really is. And I think what happened was he essentially got ejected from the left. And so he found a home with the Christian right in America. Okay. And British people, for the most part, have woken up to this grifter. He's awful, man. I don't believe that he's a born again Christian. I don't believe it. I believe it's convenient. It is so convenient to suddenly be born again when you're being hit with allegations of your previous behavior. I don't like it. Stephen said Brand was seen at WEF a few years ago. Gatekeeper, says Susan. Yeah, lefty equals communist, right equals normal people, says Lord England. They poison words and hope you'll use them to obscure. And they're off. Yeah, Kat, what about that 33 tattoo? Enough said. Also, he is an actor. He is an actor. And as we pointed out a couple of weeks ago, when he was in the film, Get Him to the Greek, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, he was a pop star and his band was called Infant Sorrow. And that creeps me out. And he was in Get Him to the Greek with Puffy. He's a good friend of Puffy's. And it's interesting that he hasn't spoken up about Puffy or said anything about him. So I find that interesting. Oh, that's a really good. I like this. Wait. I like this. Look at that. Why doesn't Russell get arrested for praying? That's brilliant. That's actually so. Where are all the charges gone about him? Oh, that. Well, I think he is still under investigation by several police forces. Yeah. So he says that this amulet will ward off all sorts of evil. Interesting. The Christian grift. He is. It's a Christian grift. And this, I think, is relevant here. And that is a true Christian wouldn't need an amulet for protection. Pistol, you're absolutely right. Why you need that? A $240 amulet for protection. Apparently, though, this is interesting. So apparently, let me just have a look at the details, because I did go to the website because I couldn't believe it. First of all, I was like, it's a game, isn't it? He's like, because he's a comedian. I was like, he's joking to us. But no, he's really flogging it. They really exist. Yes, good one, MK Ultra. I'm not religious, but well said. I'm not religious either, and I don't do damn people who are religion. Do what you want, but I can't stand charlatans. Can't stand charlatans, and I consider him a charlatan. I would not trust him at all. He didn't speak up during C19, did he? But now he's all over it. Oh, I can't stand those people. Also, anybody see Netflix's new big hitter, My Sweet Bobby? Right now, here's the thing. It's a tale of a 9-year-long catfishing fraud that was first made public on a podcast. So Netflix has gone all in on this one. Now, whenever a company, broadcasting company, streaming company go all in, that alerts me. It's like, what is it about this that makes it so special? They promoted it for weeks before release, and they only do that with the ones they consider to be massive stories. So the documentary itself, I watched it, is fine, but nothing we haven't seen for a decade or so on catfish. The actual program. And I kept wondering, why have they promoted it so much? Why did they give it such a long lead in time, promoted all over their platforms? What is it about it that sets it apart? And I kept pondering this. I pondered. And then I think I found it in the last 4 minutes of the 1.5-hour documentary as the victim, Kirat, ponders what can be done to protect people in the future. She says very clearly, I'm not looking for sympathy, but we need to understand why the internet should be regulated. Oh, yes, she says that. I'm not looking for sympathy, but we need to understand why the internet should be regulated. What? Excuse me, the internet is already regulated to a former shadow of itself. It was once, it was Wild West. It used to be Wild West, right, when it first started, no doubt about it. And there was lots that needed to be tidied up about it. But for the most part, I find on the internet that people tend to we don't need all these external laws, right? If somebody says something really crappy on the internet, other people will sort it out. Right. And so the problem is, it is already regulated to a former shadow of itself. There's more stuff coming in for the Online Harms Act. And, the thing is that I do understand that people need to be protected from some things that happen on the internet, because not all good souls congregate on the net and people need to protect themselves. And the law should back them up when it includes fraud and harassment. But this is something else. You want the internet regulated, Sonia. You want to force people to use their real name. That's not true, thought crime. I don't. I absolutely don't. You're completely misquoting me. No. I want it to be the case that if somebody is going to be abusive online, we should be able to see who it is. There are legitimate reasons why some people need to be anonymous on the internet. And sometimes it could be that they are doing a campaign against, I don't know what, about abuse, or they're worried for their job. I get it. They should be able to still continue anonymously. What you should not be able to do is abuse people with impunity on the internet and be anonymous. So that's the difference, right? I don't think that is a controversial idea at all. Well, you can say that, thought crime, but have you ever been anything other than an anonymous user? Have you? Have you ever stood up to be counted, put your name, face out there, and been subject to all manner of things? Maybe not. So maybe you're talking about this from a very cozy position, right? Spider-Man needed to remain anonymous, said Brit Indian. Yeah, no, our moderators are great. Marlena, I'm going to read out what you say. I may be ignorant, but I believe people can change. And Russell's eyes began to open and led him to the Lord. If he is a fake, he is a good actor, but I don't study him much, so I could be wrong about him. And I wouldn't say he's a good actor, but I do take your point, and you have a right. I am taking zinc, and thank you. I appreciate that. Zinc, loads of vitamin C. Fox is my name. It's my surname. Yeah, but Fox, you seem to me to be somebody who's here probably for the greater good, right? So I don't need to know who you are behind that. But if you're on here defaming people, making huge allegations about people, then they have a right to know who you are. But you're not doing that, are you? I'd rather not. It's a personal preference. Yes. Okay. I get, and I'm clearly allowing for that. No, I don't have a problem with it at all. But if you started abusing people, I would say, well, not only are you a coward, but you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't come up to me in the street and say that. That's the thing. That's the problem with anonymous abusers online. So anyway, so the point is that no, the internet does not need to be regulated anymore, even though it's going to be. And we need to be really, really careful about that. Really careful. Stephen only criticizes politicians. Do you? Shug, take your point. Anyway, your name is not actually yours in reality. And Kat, that's the other thing. Exactly. Well, the abusive people online are the agent provocateurs. Remember, they can find you very easily via your account. Absolutely. Another reason why, because a lot of those abusers are exactly that, right? They are from troll farms. We need to know who they are, right? Again, this should not be controversial. It's not who polices the police. RCN. I've met with people after having online flame wars. It was no big deal, says Lord Jaws. Vitamin D3 too, says Andrea. I take your point, people. I do. And remember what we've been saying over the last few weeks about this whole kind of Sean Puffy Coombs P. Diddy story, which just day on day grows new legs, new charges, new claims, not new charges, new claims coming in. And this week, court documents have finally claimed what we've been saying here for weeks. And that is those 1,500 plus baby oil bottles that were found at his home are, according to court documents, baby oil laced with the date rape drug, GHB, to make assaults easier. And we've heard that because one of the new claims that has come in has talked about how when this woman refused to strip for Sean Combs, he started to throw the contents of the bottle over her, and she felt her body like becoming weaker and weaker. So there's clearly something in there. Anyway, there is something very dark, something very sinister. So that's a new lawsuit. It was filed on Monday, suggested that the drug was absorbed through the victim's skin after applying the baby oil to make them drowsy. This is so dark. I don't think people realize how dark all of this is. This is not just about freak off parties, right? This all links up. It all links up because Sean Combs is somebody who has been embraced by politicians, by the royal family, not just other celebrities like himself, but his influence at one stage was so massive and so huge, right? So these white parties that he used to have, these so-called freak-offs, they were so much more than that. They were, as I've said before, they were crime scenes, no doubt about it. This another new claim is who they're calling John Doe. Now, here's the thing. Going back to identity, did his lawyers say that anybody making claims against him or charges being brought against him, they should have their identity made fully known? What do you think about that? Because there's a side of me which is that he's been fully exposed out there. So people making claims about him, surely we should know who they are as well. I mean, I'm just trying to balance it up. I'm just trying to work out what's going on. What's that? Borgias. Sorry about that, Borgias. Sorry. It's not okay to drug babies, but it's okay to put them in an unrepayable debt. Philip, you sound like an absolute loser. I'm sorry, you do. And I actually do think, Philip, you are a troll. We're going to leave you for a little while. You carry on with your nonsense. We're going to eject you because you're just talking rubbish. Like, I've literally never seen this name before, and all he's done through the entire stream is go on about me supporting an unrepayable debt for children. I have no idea what he's talking about. He's an idiot. Yeah, that's what I think. So going back to these court documents, John Doe is the anonymous name that they're giving this guy, was 16, living in New York City when he received a highly sought after invitation to the 1998 White Party in the Hamptons. When he received the invitation, he felt like he had finally made it, that his opportunity was being presented to him. And this is how they get all these young boys. And this is what's quite shocking, because there were pictures actually shared in the court documents of when this John Doe met Puffy for the first time. As John Doe entered, he spotted countless celebrities and A-listers who form the music and entertainment industry. He recognized faces he had seen on TV and on the big screen. The young boy was making his way through the crowd and heading towards the restroom when he unexpectedly bumped into Combs. Shocked, John Doe found himself face to face with Combs, the titan in the music industry, standing right in front of him at his own party. And there was a picture of that first interaction. And what John Doe claims after that was that Combs took an interest in him, a 16-year-old boy, wanted to talk to him. They walked to a more private area near the portable restrooms brought in for the party. There, John Doe told Combs he was a big fan of Combs, shared his dreams of becoming a star. Combs smiled, telling him he had the potential and the look. When John Doe admitted his voice was not great, Combs reassured him that that wasn't an issue. It's not an issue, and you don't have to be a great singer to be in the music industry. You don't. And then apparently John Doe was allegedly caught completely off guard by a request from Puffy to drop his pants. Puffy allegedly said, drop your pants. And he asked Diddy to repeat himself. Combs made himself clear. He instructed John Doe to drop his pants and expose himself so that Combs could inspect him, explaining it was a rite of passage and the route to becoming a star, and also as a way to prove himself. And yes, out of fear, anxiety. Yeah. Right. Listen. So, you know what? I'm putting Philip in timeout myself because he's taking up so much energy and attention from my mods, from people on the chat. Ignore him. They've turned on 5G in your area, says Craig. I get you. I get you. Right. So basically what happened was this poor 16-year-old said out of fear, anxiety, and the imbalanced power dynamic between himself and Combs, John Doe then dropped his pants and exposed himself as Combs previously had instructed. There are Busby, the lawyer, is now representing 120 people. 25 he claimed were minors at the time they were allegedly abused by Sean Puffy Combs. But this is where it's now starting to develop in all manner of new ways. And that is Diddy is now accused of raping a woman as payback for claiming he ordered Tupac's murder. This woman apparently had said to him, you ordered Tupac's murder, and Diddy, as payback for that, then raped her. That is the claim. That is the claim. Her name is Ashley Parham. So she has made herself known. She's suing him. She said, so here's the thing, but it's not just him she's going after, right? She's also going after his chief of staff. Christina Coram was accused of helping to cover up the rape and threatening to ship Parham overseas, never to be heard from again. And I did say to you that they will absolutely go after his staff, first of all. And they're enablers. If they're enablers, then bang them up. Absolutely, unquestionably. Bang them up. I don't care what position they have. But my worry is, and also, by the way, this woman, Christina Coram, has often been referred to as Puff Daddy's Ghislaine Maxwell. So make of that what you will. So is it going to be that it's going to be Christina Coram who's going to be banged up? Puffy goes, everybody else goes off free. No presidents brought in, and the chief of staff gets it, because that's how it strikes to me what's going on. Carpenter, I don't know. I've never listened to Prince, but his story intrigued me at the time. That's funny. I'm sorry. That's funny. This is funny. Look at this. Russell's amulet will protect you from Puffy's spiked baby oil. I don't even know what to say, but it did make me laugh. It did, because we got to find some humor somewhere, right? Sounds more like look at that. Carl says, lol, rite of passage sounds more like a right to his passage, innit? Right. And by the way, let me move on from the Puff Daddy story, because it's just constantly developing. I'm probably going to have to do a long form video about it, because my files are extensive. I have all the stuff from when I've interviewed him, all the original transcripts, everything. So, because I keep receipts. I do. I have a lot of receipts. And can I just say, at last, Tim Davie at the BBC, and I never applaud the BBC for anything, but Tim Davie has realised that the BBC are just kind of like seriously suffering after the whole Hugh Edwards thing. So this is what he's done to address it. He said that on-air talent must no longer be referred to as talent. Now, for a long time in the television industry, and I absolutely hate it, is people in front of the camera are referred to as talent and people behind the camera are not. So are we to conclude from that they are not as talented? But it definitely sets a hierarchy, and that's why you get people like Hugh Edwards and Philip Schofield and these kind of people who think that they are above everybody else, because they are called talent. Well, everybody else is not. Anyway, Tim Davie said, let's do away with that, because, of course, that is going to solve the paedophile problem at the BBC. Right? Talking about paedophiles, he's a nonce. And he worked with children. Croydon paedophile abused pupils as young as 4 years old. Jacob Thanu Haran has been jailed for 11 years. He sexually assaulted children as young as 4 when they went to his home for private tutoring. The assaults took place between 2000 and 2015, 15 years, when the victims were aged between 4 and 15 years old. 3 out of the 4 victims were assaulted when they attended his home for private tutoring. Last month at Croydon Crown Court, he was jailed and made the subject of a sexual harm prevention order. And the Detective Sergeant Vicky Thompson said, we would encourage anyone who has been subject to sexual assault to come forward and speak to police. No matter how much time has passed, you will be listened to and supported by our specialist officers. Really? Really? Honestly, like, Vicky, did you manage to say that with a straight face? Because I know so many people who have been subject to abuse and they've come to the police and they've been told either it's too old, there's no evidence, we can't do anything about this. So I think that's PR nonsense. I don't believe it when the cop says that. What was he teaching? Oh, let me have a look. Let me see if I've got that. When they tend to, I don't know actually. Oh, I think he might have been teaching maths. But I will check that. Now, also, I am alarmed to find that the new CEO of NSPCC, which of course is a charity which is supposed to protect children, is a major trans promoter. And that concerns me because he's not neutral. Chris Sherwood is, and James Esus, who tweets a lot, had found a tweet of Chris Sherwood, which says, I am proud to support the hashtag Stand With Trans campaign because trans and non-binary people deserve to feel safe and supported in the charity sector. Everybody deserves to feel safe and supported. But I am deeply concerned that the man who is now the head of the NSPCC is part of the gender agenda. I am deeply concerned about that. Deeply concerned. No, George, they won't get rid of Eric Gill's masonry job. No, they won't. Eric Gill, of course, big statue outside the front of the BBC. We talk about it often. I really should start a petition, but is there any point? Is there any point? Will anything be done about it? No, probably not. Probably not. Right. This to me is a grave injustice. And this man has been demonized many times, including by people on our own side, quote unquote. Rainer Fulmich. Rainer Fulmich, you must know him. I'm sure you do. Let me show this. Here he is. He's shackled and in very unusual ways as well, because not only does he have handcuffs, which are then attached to the cop, but his feet are also shackled as well. And it appears that he too have. So what happened basically was during C19, he was mobilizing lots of people against governments around the world who were all in lockstep about C19. And then he was arrested. He was accused. So he was like a leading figure. Let's be clear about this, right? He was the leading figure together with Vivian Fisher and the founder of the Corona Investigative Committee and the grand jury, People's Tribunal of Public Opinion. It was designed to reveal the truth about what was going on during C19 and its totalitarian foundations. The hearings of over 150 international experts was broadcast live, has contributed to, I think, quite substantially to attacking the narrative. Anyway, he was arrested. He was accused of all manner of things. He actually had a trial in April. And what we discovered at the trial in April was that there was a top secret document that was read out in court. And this was how the German security services had carried out an in-depth investigation into his activities. But to read it will tell you so much. I wonder if I can publish it anywhere. I'm going to read some of it. And it talks about how they had conducted a thorough investigation into Rainer Fulmich, a person who is increasingly perceived as a potential threat to public safety and the democratic order. Right. So basically, what's happened this week is we've had an audio released from prison, and I sat and I kind of transcribed it yesterday. Call from inside, and. You know, it's really interesting. He says that the evidence now shows that court is attempting to invent new charges against him, evidence that shows it's a fake trial based on completely fabricated charges. A new whistleblower from our side, he said, has come forward to say that the intelligence that they have gathered corroborates this. And Rainer was actually talking about a reason for a delay in getting the information out. Now, it turns out that his own lawyers cannot call him by phone. They cannot send anything by email. He's not allowed a computer. The fax, if he's ever sent a fax, is held back for days. He said, I don't want to give the impression of being a victim. 100% we are winning in this case, and to do with the Middle East. And he said that bright sunlight is the best of disinfections. Of course, he was accused of fraud. They said that he had taken money that had been given to him by the public. He had spent it on himself. They always attack stuff like that, don't they? Get Vivian on your side to explain the other side. Yeah, I'd love to. The courtroom is a playroom for those in power. They get off on knowing they'll be going to court. And Sugarpuff said, Reiner had donated money in gold and property. Why not? He can't trust banks. That's the thing. He put it outside of their reach. That was the problem. Okay. He said, for the past 4 months, he's been in solitary confinement with no notice of a hearing. He talked about on this audio about the linking up of like Epstein, Savile, Combs, Hugh Edwards, and more. He said it shows pure evil lurks in the entertainment industry and in business. And he said neither his lawyer or he were ever told the reasons for why he is driven to court in handcuffs, chained to a leather belt around his waist, shackled, and has to wear a bulletproof vest. And when he's questioned why I have to wear a bulletproof vest, they have told him, well, we can't guarantee, that you won't be, that we can protect you if they attack you. What? Yes, he is. I believe Reiner was set up. B, I'm not going to say that. That could get me in trouble. That could be considered defamation, but I take your point. But you think he's been set up, right? And what he said is that we are winning, that he referred to the film Dragnet, the quote, just the facts. I'm giving you the facts, right? And he said he has full support from his entire family, including wife. And he said that the other side only have the support of their flying monkeys. He said, I do not get mad. I get even through justice. And that, in closing, reminds me of a Ronald Reagan quote. We're going to make them feel the heat, because we're going to make sure that justice is done. And this justice will send them straight to hell. He said, let's keep going. I'll see you all in a bit. Well, clearly, the state are terrified of Reiner Fullmich. Terrified. And why ever not? He managed to mobilize people. He put money outside of the control of the state and the banking system. And they got him for the one thing that they felt that they could. If he's out, he will beat them at their game, playing by their rules. That's why they're locking him up. It is time for me to rest shortly, Craig. Absolutely. I'm actually coming to a close, people, because I'm still feeling rough. I really am. And let me just read you a couple of letters, right? A couple of emails. And let me see, because I want to remind this. Good morning to Claire Louise. Good morning to you, Claire Louise. I hope you are well, she said. Claire Louise watched my video, The Great Replacement, with Dr. Simon Elmer. She said, that was the most enlightening and worrying interview I've seen from you so far. And God, you cover such important issues all the time. I had so many pieces of this jigsaw, but you completed the whole picture in 1 hour and 20 minutes. I listened on catch up. My 2-hour drive to Stoke today was to look at some Sprocker pups. I turned around after 1 hour and cancelled the viewing. Newly divorced and living alone, I just wanted a companion to fill the silence and void and join me on my new camper van travels. Now I'm looking at a breed that offers me some protection. This is how serious this is becoming. I get your point, and I'm planning to do a camper van. Oh, I've still got Reiner Fullmich on here. I've planned to do a camper van excursion next year as well, Claire Louise, so I completely relate to you. And my dog is a guard dog. I got her off I didn't personally, but she's off the streets of Romania, and she is actually a guard dog. Anybody mess with me, she'll take them down, and I need that. And B said, Ref Reiner, the other thing to remember is that he has been an incredibly good lawyer before 2020, successful, winning countless global court cases against very large, well-known corporations. Got you. Is to break the bottom, cover the top. I see. Healing the Silence is talking about the correct way to eat a cupcake. We get some of the funniest comments on here, right? Hi, chat, says Fred. What about the fluffy people here this morning? Who is what's that, Ven May? What fluffy people? Thank you, Carol. I will. It said feel better soon. I'm going to do an intense day of working on myself, because I absolutely intend to be at UK Column tomorrow. I have a story that I want to tell, and I'm really looking forward to it. Right. So just be grateful that Walsingham School, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they were going to have a Blue Nose Day today. They've now cancelled it. Right. And they cancelled it. So the idea was that they were going to turn off the heating throughout the school day to conserve energy. We are doing this to help reduce our school's carbon footprint and raise the importance of being more sustainable. Anyway, online backlash meant they cancelled it. Blue Nose Day. They are literally trying to I mean, that is actually brainwashing, isn't it, for the children? This whole idea that we have to turn off the heating for them to have a blue nose day. It's disgusting. Emily, have you got an extremely thick fog? Late to the chat, says Emily. What's that? Has anyone had an extremely thick fog settle over their town? Anybody? Can anybody relate to what Emily's saying? Craig said Russell Brand's brown nose day. Thick fog settled over their town this morning, which steadily seems to be getting thicker. What's that? What's that about? Thank you, Kath. I do soldier on. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you all for being here. Yes, I do. Right. We are coming to a close because, well, clearly I'm going to have to. And I want to talk about overthinking because lovely Carrie wrote to me saying, Dear Sonia, I overthink. In fact, I'm overthinking now. All the time. It creates immense anxiety and stress for me, and most of it is unnecessary because the stuff I overthink about either doesn't materialize or isn't as bad as I think it is. Any suggestions to overcome overthinking? Well, yes. Many of us are kind of plagued with overthinking, right? Kind of this like hamster wheel of thought that keeps going round and round and round and round, running around in our heads. And perhaps you ruminate over something you said or didn't say, something you did or didn't do, and you wish you'd have done it, or any of those kind of things. What causes overthinking? Well, stress and anxiety can often lead to overthinking. You may be prone anyway, quite naturally, to, ruminating over and over with your thoughts, especially if you feel unsupported in any way. Because honestly, that old idea of kind of like, a trouble shared is a problem shared is a problem halved. There is truth to that. You obviously have to be careful who you're sharing your problems with, because not everybody is who they claim to be. And some people rejoice in your problems. But once you are safe in talking to people, whether it's your family or your friends or whomever, then you should share. You should share. Just for yourself, offload, right? But I do find that what often happens is overthinking is kind of a consequence of the type of people who self-sabotage as well. Like you tell yourself, oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that. I'm never going to do that. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to achieve that. All that kind of stuff, right? So overthinking is a consequence of that. So how do we overcome overthinking? Well, Carrie, all I can do is share with you some of the things that I've done. One of the things that I did was to monitor and observe my thoughts as if I was a spectator. So when I would start to have often intrusive thoughts, because I also, for a very long period of time, and still to a degree, had OCD. But I've kind of, believe it or not, almost self-trained myself out of it. It took a lot of work. And I actually went and did a psychology degree in order to be able to understand myself better, to be able to overcome that. So overthinking is also one of the manifestations of OCD, okay, and ADHD as well. So if there's actually a clinical or medical reason for it, you may want to get assistance for that. But there are ways to take care of yourself. And actually, I think a lot of the time it's just safer. Really is. So monitor and observe your thoughts rather than letting, this overthinking run riot. Take control. Listen to yourself. What am I saying there? Is that right? Is that accurate? Why am I doing myself down? So that's definitely number one, right? And also practice mindfulness to combat overthinking. I'm a real advocate of meditation. I think it's a wonderful thing. I meditate pretty much anywhere. I could be at a bus stop meditating, right? Because I learned how to do it. So I can literally freeze out people. Oftentimes when I'm going into difficult situations, I will meditate just prior to it. And also do shadow work. You need to dig deeper. Carrie, start digging, right? What makes you do this? Try and catch yourself as you're kind of like going through that spiral. Try and catch it. What's the feeling you're feeling? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? What? And because I think oftentimes we have a lot of the solutions ourselves for these issues. What's going on? People, let me catch up. What do I do wrong with the comments? Because music's my meditation and medicine, says Soul Sound. I know it is. I know it is, actually. And mindfulness is good, Stephen. It's so important. Meditation is brilliant for training the mind. It really is. And another way to get to deal with overthinking, Carrie, as well, is do a free flow of writing, right? Journal all those troubling thoughts. When you see them on paper, they will not have the same impact as running around untamed in your mind. Equally, you can make a voice recording if you'd prefer to, and just listen back to it, whatever works for you. But you need to just kind of take time to sit and think, why am I doing this to myself? What is it about? Is there is there a real legitimate reason why I should feel anxious about this? Because I bet you 9 out of 10 times there isn't. And that is no judgment on you. No judgment at all. We've all been there, right? But just take some time to sit and think, okay? I drink beer. Works for me both ways, says Randy. Meditation, chewing the cud, says Vanessa. Remember, their spells are powerless against you if you are of good heart and sound mind. Shug, that, oh, wait, what just happened? Where did Shugs just go? Shug, that is such a great, I love that. There it is. Look at that. Remember, their spells are powerless against you if you're of good mind, good heart and sound mind. Absolutely. And also, by the way, when you're in the middle of overthinking, Carrie, do something different. Just because it's a prison, that overthinking is a prison with bars, right? Distract yourself with another activity, whatever it is, whether it's playing a game or watching a video or listening to music or dancing around the room, whatever it is, do it. What's this, Gojo? I like that. Let's have a look at that. Many blockages in our atmosphere unseen. Good to be in tune with nature, yet it does seem compromised. Grab the day when skies are blue and clear. Tone said alcohol helps me when I start overthinking. Got ya. And a short show. I know Soul Sound. I'm terrible. I am going. I absolutely am going. But listen, I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm sorry I'm a bit of a mess. I promise I'll be better on Monday. Absolutely. M says, coming here helps me too. God love you. Joanne says, I'm going to encourage my daughter to be there tomorrow. And we got Philip back. Philip the lunatic who asked if I feel exposed. Listen, this guy is 100% a troll. 100% a troll. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I've given too much attention to him. And Fred Withrow said, I have a big mouth and it's caused me trouble all my life, but I'd hate to lose the skill. Absolutely, Fred. I hear you. Frank is a top-notch analyst. Politicians never overthink anything, says Cavan. You're absolutely right. Paralysis. Vanessa, we love that too. Paralysis by analysis. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to thank you all for being here today and sticking with me through this great difficulty of a runny, snotty nose. But I'm a soldier. I've got this. Don't you worry, people. I want to end on a quote. But first of all, thank you all very much, everybody who contributes to this, for your emails, for your live comments, for your donations, for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, all of those things. And the quote I want to leave you on is, overthinking is the art of creating problems that weren't even there. On that note, have a fantastic weekend. If you're at the UK column tomorrow, I hope to see you. Come and say hello to me. Take good care of yourself, people. I will see you again on Monday, and hopefully I'll be a far less spluttery than I am now. Lots of love to you.